What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show from the Valley to the Mountaintop podcast. I'm your host, Michael Gibson. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome, welcome, welcome. On this podcast, we interview business owners to see the ins and outs on what it took to build their particular business. I hope you brought your pen and pad because we have a special guest in the building. I'm gonna let him introduce himself and his company. And while you're at it, sir, give us a little bit of background on your upbringing.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's AJ Kendall, and I am in the Midwest. So I'm out of Omaha, Nebraska, and I started my company 14 years ago. So it's been a long, long journey. But yeah, we do basically like lawn and landscaping work. Things, I mean, a lot of things have changed over the years. And now I'm kind of at the stage where I've got all the systems built. I got management, I got an admin in the office. We've recently simplified services to where it's more scalable because, as you know, anybody listening right now, building this specific type of business or really any business is super challenging. It might start off like very exciting and fun, and getting to that first 100K mark for the year. But as you continue to build it, it gets super challenging. There's no doubt you're going to run into, once you maxed yourself out, you're going to need an employee. And as soon as you add an employee, that's like the first stage where you start really feeling the effects of the hardships. They start to come, the problems with an employee not showing up, or they have their own personal life and they have issues in their life, and now you got to manage that person. And then trying to get to 10 employees is a whole nother ballgame, because then you need management, and the phone and the email starts to get so crazy with time, and the billing and taxes and just all the things that come with business as it scales. A lot of most businesses, and probably a lot of people listening right now, I would say, at least from what I know, like 90% or so are under the $1 million mark. So getting to that $1 million milestone is super challenging, and really once you do get to that mark, really staying profitable and going beyond that mark is even more rare. I think it's only like 5% that actually operate at a good profit that's healthy and continue to scale past $1 million and actually stay there for more than 5 years. It's super rare. And we've had the luxury, or I guess the opportunity to scale past $1 million. And I realized that working 80 hours a week is not fun. Like I'm down to do it for a little bit, but that's not really sustainable. You can't just work 80 hours a week for, your entire life, especially if you have a personal life, you have, a family at home that needs you. So, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go into any details on any of these topics, 14 years in, and there's just tons of stuff I can talk about. So you let me know what kind of questions you have, and I'm happy to elaborate on anything.
Okay, now first, what made you decide to get into hardscaping and landscaping?
Yeah, so I was going to college actually for architecture, and I ended up switching my major to landscape architecture, and I am not a super smart dude. I didn't excel in like academics, I mean, I did okay, but really I just cared more about like partying and hanging out with friends, and I always was very ambitious on like making money. It just college and school just never really, I tried it for a long time. Like I definitely it's almost embarrassing to admit that I went to school for 8 years and I did not get any degree. I ended up dropping out after 8 years of college. No degree, just a shit ton of credits. And what made me get into it is I had a few lawns on the side as I was going through college, and I made good money on those handful of lawn accounts that I had. And I realized that, like, man, if I just had like 20 accounts or 40 accounts myself, I would make a pretty good living. And then I just, I started to get into business really. I started just wanting to be a business owner and grow something, and so I decided, you know what, I basically they weren't going to give me, the government wasn't going to give me any more money for school. I was, getting financial assistance, and they kind of cut me off finally. And I said, you know what? I'm going to drop out. I'm just going to focus everything on this business, and I'm just going to grow up from here. I wish I would have just done that right out of high school, because I mean, I would have been like far more successful, but it took me that long to realize it. And so, here we are. I'm 39, or I'm almost 39 years old, 38, almost 39. And yeah, 14 years in the as a registered business owner. So
Now, let me ask you. I heard you say in the beginning that you said this. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said you didn't consider yourself to be as smart when you was in college.
right,
Now,
yeah, 100%. Yep.
do you think if you was so called smart, you would still be in the financial state that you're in today versus if you would have finished college?
No, not at all. I mean, definitely, and this is something that people don't realize, that when you start a business, you don't understand what value you actually are going to get, like the personal development aspect of starting a business. Like you
Mm-hmm.
don't, that never crosses your mind in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I look back, I can say, I learned more just about life in general, and the skills I have. Like the skills I have nowadays are pretty much like a sales skill. Like that's something that really I've developed over time, and communication. So like talking with somebody and articulating my words, skills I didn't learn from school, and I learned those skills from, going and knocking on the door and saying, hey, like this is my company, and are you interested in getting the service? Or they reach out to me because I have to learn marketing, and it's like, again, like taking marketing courses in college, it really just teaches you principles. It doesn't teach you really like how operating a business teaches you. So the
Mm-hmm.
skills in operating a business are far more valuable. And like I said at the very beginning of this, is the personal development that happens. That's something that you kind of just is a pleasant surprise after you put a decade in. You realize, oh my God, I'm actually good. Or most of the time, you have, in order to build something and last 10 years, you have to develop some type of skill in managing your own time, plus managing another person, more than likely to make it 10 years. And then also selling, because it's like you're not going to have any sales. Somebody's got to sell. Somebody's going to call you and say, I want that service. You're going to have to sell that service to them. And after 10 years of doing that, you start to develop a skill there. And then you realize that, oh, that I actually got, the part, the biggest benefit of having the business is not the financial benefit. It's actually the skills in like communication and management, sales and marketing, most likely.
Right. Now, at what point did you go from a one man operation to hiring your first employee? Because I believe a lot of guys get stuck in the truck, as they call it, to where it's like they can't grow
Yeah.
past themselves. Like, how did you leap over that fence and get to your first?
Yeah, I think that's a really big beneficial question and answer to a lot of, probably a lot of listeners, I'm guessing. Because again, like I said, most businesses are under $1 million, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them fall into that, 100 to 500,000. I mean, most this is from my experience, this is what happens. You go through all the risk of hiring a person. It's super that's probably one of the biggest breakthroughs, is hiring a person and actually doing it all legitimately, paying the taxes, having the work comp insurance, like doing it all legitimately. It becomes very expensive. And then you have to raise your price in order to afford it all. And that's hard. But if you can do that, you make it past that stage, then it's like, okay, now I can hire a couple more people and it's not as much of a challenge because you've done it. And then going past that, though, it becomes like getting that first employee. That's like the first big hurdle. And what people tend to do is they hire more and more and more, but they're not really making more profit. They're just adding stress and time to their business and complexity, and not really getting any more reward. That reward doesn't really come until you get to like certain thresholds. If there's a lot of listeners listening right now, Mike Andes is really good at explaining the different, like, not, I wouldn't call it break points, but like the categories of business, where it's like when you're a one man show, like you want to try to get to like 150, maybe 200,000 by yourself, and then you hire your first person. Well, you have to get, up to like 300,000. You got to replace all the money that they're costing. You have to make that much more profit in order to pay them. So, and they're going to operate at like a 75% efficiency of what you're operating at, because they don't have the same ambition, goals, drive that you do, because it's yours. And so like hiring your first person, I think that's like one of the hardest things in the whole development plan. The whole, like a lot of people do have goals of like getting to that $1 million mark, but I'd say, just from my own experience, you can do about 150,000 by yourself. Once you hire somebody, that allows you to kind of go to that 250 mark. You want to try to get like a 100,000 more in revenue per employee. That's kind
Mm.
of a good general rule of thumb right there. And also like hiring that admin position. I think that was kind of the next big hurdle. Like your first field tech is a hurdle. Once you can get past that, it starts to get a little bit easier. Then you want to maximize profit. Try to get to that profit maximization, not really growth. Just try to max everybody out, you and your employee and your one asset, pretty much like your truck and maybe a mower or a piece of equipment. Try to max out there and max out for a year before you try to grow again. Because what happens is if you try to grow every year by doubling, you end up just spending all your money and then the profit kind of goes out. And it's really challenging when you're working 80 hours and you're not making any profit and you're
Mm.
just working your ass off. And then what tends to happen is people don't like that because it's very stressful. Then they go back down to the one man and the one guy in the truck, and they pretty much stay there because that's like manageable. It's so much easier to manage that. And so yeah, I mean, breaking that first employee and then just knowing that it's going to be incredibly difficult to kind of scale up. And as we get to 1 million, you're going to have an admin. And like you right at about 700K, you need that admin and a manager and a salesperson, three non-income producing positions. That's
Mm.
very expensive. So once you get to that, now you have to get like 1.2 million, 1.3 million, one maybe up to 1.5
Mm.
before you actually see the profit that you actually were at 500K. I look at that now and it's like, man, at 500K, I had $100,000 in profit on top of my salary.
Mm.
Well, now, at a million at a $1 million mark, we're at a 1% profit margin. This is stuff that we've done, and it's like, man, and I've had to work 80 hours to do it. It's like I could totally understand why somebody would go back to just the truck and the truck and the helper that's in there with them, and just go for two a $250,000 of revenue a year, and make a decent living.
And now let me ask you: do you think, because like you say, you see it a lot, and I've seen it a lot by being in lawn care. I've seen other YouTubers. I've seen guys locally. I've talked to guys locally. I would see them go from working by themselves, two employees, two trucks, and then they're back in the truck by themselves. Do you think most, or if not most, do you think some business owners hold themselves back from getting to that next level?
It's easy to do that. It definitely is because most people start the business because they know how to do the work and they
Mm-hmm.
know how to do the work so well. They're like, well, why would I do the work and get paid, 18 or $20 an hour from this guy when I could
Right.
just do it myself and make like $50 an hour? Like,
Right.
I'll just make $50 an hour and do the work because I know how to do the work really well. Well, having a business isn't just doing the work. That, like, again, it's like, scaling it up past yourself requires more skill. You have to actually have business knowledge. You have to understand marketing and sales and management. Those are skills that we're not required to do the work really, by yourself. It's like, but once you have another guy in the truck or you have two trucks, you're in one truck and then you have another guy in another truck. It's like you have to sell enough work to keep both of you guys busy. And you have to manage that profit, manage that person, manage their efficiency, manage the sales. Like there's calls coming in, you got to manage that, and it just gets more and more and more. Right? If you want to try to get four trucks, well, now the phone's ringing a lot. Now you don't have time to work in the truck, and so as soon as you take yourself off the crew, now you are generating like 100K in revenue. Well, now you take yourself off and you replace yourself. That replacement's only doing $70,000 in revenue, and so you got to up the revenue by over 70,000 just to keep the same profit. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to skills. Like people, they try to go above themselves and they try to get like a couple more people on the team. Well, then they have to have a new skill in management, marketing, and sales. And if you don't have those skills, if they're not developed enough, the stress will be too great, and you'll say, "Never mind, I don't want to do that because it's just too stressful. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
go back into the truck and just." operate at that like lower level, 100 to 200K, and I'm just gonna stay as, like this is just you're basically just self-employed. You just
Mm,
you have a job,
mm.
you own your job. That's really all it is, and there's nothing really wrong with that. A lot, not everybody can be a business owner, but if you want to be a more successful business owner and you want to scale it and you want to actually go on vacation, or where you are not dependent, you're not the bottleneck on the income, you're going to have to scale up to that $1 million mark, and it's going to take skills. You're going to have to develop skills, learn skills, and be patient, and be willing to endure pain, and you have the drive, have the discipline to do hard things that you don't want to do, and eventually, if you can overcome it, you will. And then you'll be one of those guys that has a $2 million company that has a 20% profit margin. And you'll be in that rare, 3 to 5% of all business owners that are actually in that category. But there's a reason why only 3% are in that category, because it's extremely difficult to do and it requires lots of skills that you have to overcome.
Right, right. So you do believe, because I believe it too, in a sense that some people are kind of created to be workers and some are kind of created to be business owners. Do you think that's kind of true, or based on the
I
percentages you
do.
gave me?
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's why those percentages are the way they are. And there's a good book, The E-Myth, and it kind of breaks it down into these categories where there's the entrepreneur, and then there's the technician,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a manager. And everybody is more inclined to one of those categories. And having just self-awareness, not everybody is, like not everybody can be an artist, not
Mm-hmm.
everybody can be a singer or a pro basketball player. Like there's certain skills that you have,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to find out what skills those are. And if, like for me, management is not really I'm going back to myself, my situation. I was never good at school. I went to school for 8 years, never got a degree, and it was hard the whole time. Where I saw other students just come in and out, get all A's, and go on, and now they have professional jobs. And I was like, man, I was always like comparing myself to them, and like kind of like mad, like why am I not getting that success that they are getting? And then I realized that my skills are more in communication and creativity and sales. That's where my skills are. Like, yeah, I know how to do the work. I am good at the work. But then like as far as management goes, like I have ADHD. So as far as like managing, once it got to be a lot, I couldn't really handle it, and I wasn't excelling at it. So I had to hire, like I hired somebody to manage and take on at least half of the management. So we have our company's broken up into like landscaping and lawn care, whereas I'm managing the landscaping. Well, I have somebody else managing all the lawn care. So I never have
Mm.
to answer a question about anything related to lawn care, So that shares that responsibility. And then with the admin, now I no longer have to monitor the emails and the calls and set scheduling. Like I'm sure so many people are listening. Like you're working in the field, then your phone's like blowing up. Then you have to you're paying for your phone to ring, so you have to answer it. So then you
Right.
go to the truck, you answer it, and now you're becoming like this office admin position.
Right.
And so now you're like trying to set up a schedule to go look at their property, and it's just so hard because you're trying to play so many roles, and if you're not good at managing your time and being able to switch all these roles, that's a skill in itself. If
Mm-hmm.
you're not good at that, you're gonna see right away, like I'm just not good at this. Like if you're missing the appointments and not calling people back, you're not good at it. And if some people are able to develop the skill easier than others,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you can, I do believe that skills can be built. Like anybody can become good at stuff. It just matters on like how much discipline you have, how much like tenacity and drive do you have to build that skill, and then awareness too. Like are you developing the skill fast enough to where this makes sense? Because if it's going to take you 30 years to build a business to $1 million or $2 million, is it even worth it? Maybe you would just be
Mm.
best at being a worker, and then starting a whole side gig thing where maybe you don't have those skills, but you still want freedom. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody starts a business because really it's like you want to make good money and eventually have freedom. If you make good money and you live on less than you make, you can invest the difference and then retire early, or sell your business after 20 years and actually have a little bit of a retirement to where you have freedom. You have freedom to choose what you want to do with your time. And I think that's kind of what ultimately is everyone's goal, like make a living and then have some type of exit to where you have a retirement plan there. And maybe growing the business isn't for you, but maybe you can operate it as a $300,000 level, you and another person or two other people operate it there, live on less than you make and invest the difference. And eventually, just through 20 years of operating at that level that's manageable for you, you still are going to get to the freedom that you want. It's just a different route. So it is awareness, understanding like who you are, where your skills are. Are you excelling in management or sales? Are you actually excelling, or are you dropping the ball year after year after year and getting nowhere?
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Because I heard a quote you said on one of your videos. It said, forgive me if I'm quoting it wrong, but it said, if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others.
100%. And that comes down to that personal development factor. Whereas
Right.
you yeah, and again, that goes back to the leadership skill. In order to have a multi-million-dollar company, you have to be a leader, and there's just no way around it. Like
Mm.
to get everyone on board with you and to follow you, you got to be a leader. And if you're not a good leader to yourself, then they're going to sense that, and they're not. It's just that's just how it is, like show being able to lead yourself. And like if you struggle with, let's just say like you struggle with drugs and alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
if you're showing up to work late and you're supposed to be the leader and you smell like alcohol, these guys are done with you. Like you have to be a leader,
Right.
or they're not. They're gonna be like, oh, my boss or my the owner of the company, my boss is he's a loser. He gets drunk. He's got a DUI now, or they'll just make up shit too. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you show up late drunk, like just one time they're gonna just make up shit, call you a drunk. Like you might not even be a drunk. You might have just went out one night. But you see what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be a leader. And like I think of it like this too, where it's like if you're just visually, if you look like you don't take care of yourself, like you let your hair grow out, your clothes are never like clean, like your appearance,
Mm-hmm.
like if you just have this appearance to you, it looks like you don't respect yourself enough to be in a healthy state. Making sure you're clean and presentable. That goes with sales too. Like because you're not only selling the work to clients, and you want to look clean for that and look well taken care of, but you're also selling the leadership to the employees where they believe in you, that you're actually going to go somewhere, and that if they stay here at this company, they're going to go with you, and there's going to be opportunities down the road. I think that's another thing where it's like in this industry specifically, a lot of people are just looking for a job, and if you really want to bring on people that are like looking for opportunity, and if you don't have opportunity, those people, those good employees, they're going to go to the competitor that has opportunities. And yeah, if you prove and sell to them that you're growing a business, and that if they come with you, there's going to be opportunities down the road for them, new positions and whatnot. They're going to stay with you longer, and they're going to believe in you. Like whatever the mission is, they're going to believe in it, and they're going to stay with you longer and actually go somewhere. So yeah, being a leader to yourself, not letting yourself down. If you say you're going to wake up and diet and exercise and do this and that, like you have to do it. And when you do that, and they see you like, say you're overweight and you lose like 30 pounds, they see you do it, and they see you not missing in the morning, like you're always here, you're never late. That's going to build trust, and that's going to help with that leadership, because now you're proving it to yourself. Like I said I was going to do these things, and I did them, and you're proving to yourself. It's building confidence within yourself. Or I'm gonna hire another employee. I'm gonna buy another truck. Look, bam, I just did it. I did it. And you just all these little things that you set out to do, you actually follow through with your word, because that's another thing that matters most is your word. And if you follow through with your word and you do what you say, that's one of the biggest characteristics of a leader, is just holding your word and doing what you say.
Right. Now, I want to ask you this as well. Like in the midst of you going through all of that, growing your business, getting to the $1 million mark, do you think a business is hard on a relationship?
Absolutely.
or a family.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I was lucky enough to start my business before I met my wife. Now she did
Mm.
have to go through it with me because, as we all start a business, we all start at zero.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it just turns into a big thing. I mean, it requires a lot of intentional effort.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my first year, part-time, 16,000. And then the next year it was like 56,000. Then the next year it was like 88,000. And I remember these numbers specifically because I was like, look, we're growing, and I think I met her sub 100K. So I think I met her at like right around like 60K. It was just my job basically. I had my brother who's now my partner that I financed half the company to, but it took a long time and he was just very part-time. Like he'd help me out like 2 days a week. Then the next year, finally we hit that 100K mark. And I remember he finally started to like, okay, I'm gonna go to landscaping, you do lawn care. And
Mm.
that's kind of like, and then I remember like at 180,000 or so, somewhere around there, that's when we hired our first employee. Besides him, he was an employee, so he was actually the very first employee. And then we hired our, what would be the third employee, right around 200K, and just slowly just kept adding to it. But I remember that so specifically. It was
Wow.
so hard to do that. And yeah, hard on the family for sure. She would be like, "Hey, when are you coming home?" I thought I was gonna be home at this time, but turns out I'm not. And yeah, of
Right.
course, like she's mad. She's not happy about it. And everyone knows, like, luckily we had, we didn't have kids yet. So once we had
Okay.
kids, it got even worse, because then now there's kids involved, and now she really needs help, and now I'm letting her down. Now, see, I was fortunate enough to build the company up to a level where I could get out of the field when our first child was born. So
Mm.
it was like, but I remember the day my first child was born, I had to leave the same day he was born and go and push snow. And it was extremely hard, like she's she basically hated the business. She pretty much to this day still, has her feelings about the business. Yeah, it's afforded us a nice lifestyle and we're grateful for it, but it came at a cost, and it still is. Like I'm not I don't have this business all figured out, like just because we went to $1 million doesn't mean that we've nailed it and we're like some crazy successful company. I mean, we're really not. We grew to $1 million, but our profit shrunk to almost zero. So it's like we're still also figuring it out, like we're trying to go past $1 million again and actually get our profit margin up. And we've been investing in coaching and changing up services and doing all kinds of things to try to do that. And yeah, so now I'm starting to work a little bit more in the business, but yeah, for a good, I would say 5 years, it was extremely hard on the family and constantly, like, I mean, I would be up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, so I'm out of the house already. And then what would be the hardest thing is like if she called and like was sick, and it's like,
Mm.
oh God, like now I have to take care of my wife. I can't choose the business, but I won't lie. Like there's been times where I chose the business over my wife, and you could just imagine how that went.
Yeah, and I think a lot of business owners go through that with their spouse because, as a man with a family, you want to make sure your family's taken care of and you want to actually grow this business so you can live a good life. But I think some women kind of look at it like, I hear you, but I don't care about none of that. You know what I'm
Exactly, 100%.
saying?
Like, how could you ever choose the business over me? That's all that they think. And it's like, this business won't be here if I don't serve these customers. Like they've been rescheduled already. They can't be rescheduled again. And so so's out. Like two people called in. Like it has to be done.
Yeah.
I have a different attitude on it now. Like back then, I mean, I would bend over backwards for these customers and do
Yeah.
anything to hold that schedule. Now I'm like, now I don't have that same. Now I almost care more about the employees than the customer. Now I've kind
Yeah.
of shifted the focus to try to care more about the employees and taking care of them. And it's a constant, balancing act though, where it's like now I got to focus on the family. Now I got to focus on the customer. Now I got to focus on. So you're always kind of choosing like who you put more focus on, and you try to make it as equal as you can. Maybe lean a little more to your family because
Hmm.
they are ultimately more important than the
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
and your own personal health and development. For years, I never exercised. You're just going into the gas station, eating a slice of pizza, getting an energy drink, and then
Mm-hmm.
eating it while you drive to the your next account, and then
Mm-hmm.
boom, nailing this job out or whatever it is. And you're just not taking care of yourself. And if I don't know if anyone else is like me, but I would operate my business, and then I'm trying to invest in real estate on the side,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm doing like a flip in the middle of it. So I'm working till like the middle of the night trying to flip a property, and then I'm up at like 6 trying to manage $100,000 project for an outdoor
Mm-hmm.
kitchen or something like that. And the stress, I remember, like, if you looked at my last post on TikTok or Instagram, I can't remember which one, but I posted like I was at like 160 pounds, just like I mean, I was like disappearing, like, whoa,
Mm.
didn't sleep. Now I'm like 210 pounds. I've been exercising for pretty much 18 months straight, diet and exercise, just bulking and cutting, but not like I literally, I'm sitting in my car right now. I just got out of the gym, and
Wow.
I care more about the gym and I care more about my family than I really do the business. Like, ultimately, like, I move these things into more importance. But there's a time and season for it all. And there
Yeah.
is, when you're starting the business, like, you got to get it up to a certain level, and it just won't go to that level if you don't make all sacrifices and just there's a season where it's like, no, this business is getting all of it.
Yeah.
Because the people that don't do that, like, it just takes them either longer or they just never get to that higher level.
Mm. That's true. Now, I seen one of your posts, and you said, "Be comfortable while drowning."
Yeah.
Do you think it takes that, like how you just said, like, either some people is going to sacrifice it all to get this off the ground, or some not? And in a sense, do you think you have to go through all of that hardship and at the same time be kind of cool on the surface, but hey man, we really drowning, but I gotta see this through.
Yeah, I really do. I really think that you have to, because so this is another, like, development of your mental, your mindset. I remember my, like, first big job way long time ago. It was 15 yards of mulch. I was just like, had so much anxiety. So I'm the type of person that I struggle with anxiety, or at least have in the past. I'm pretty much on top of it, the most I've ever been now, just because of, like I said, my lifestyle, my diet, my stress, everything's like very much in check. Well, what's crazy is that, like, my stress level is lower now than it has been. But, like, right now, I'm gonna be completely vulnerable and open. Right now, we don't have enough in the bank right now to cover payroll. That's in 2 days. And this is how we've operated this almost this entire year. It's been a constant, like, I've had to invest my own personal money back into the company almost on a weekly basis just to make ends meet. And like, this is the only year we've ever had to do that. This year and a little bit of last year. Before that, we always had enough money, and like I said, as you scale, the problems scale, and then you got to figure out how to fix those problems, because you can't scale problems. They have to be in check. And I think that, like, if you can't learn how to be comfortable with these situations, you won't overcome them. Like, you have to overcome them. And I guess part of that in overcoming it, you have to be comfortable with the problems, and you have to, like, because if you're all anxious, you're not going to solve the problem. Like, you have to be calm and look at it, like, strategically and objectively, and then just solve the problem. Like, I have a plan, and I am executing my plan, but it's stressful. A lot of people would be in my situation, they're like, hell no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm just gonna go get a job.
Right.
And so I'm just like, no, I'm like, I can't do that. I can't go get a job, because like, I'll invest everything I have. Like I already told my partner, I'm like, and our admin, I said, look, if it comes down to it, I'll sell one of my properties. And because I have rental properties that I've purchased over the years, and it's like, if it comes down to it, I'm not going to dissolve the company or file bankruptcy. I'm gonna sell off my assets and keep, because the business potentially could bring in more
Mm-hmm.
in like a return than any of those other investments. It potentially can. And I guess I just believe it so much that I'm like, I have to keep trying until I'm just like dead, or there's just no possible way to continue. Like, I'll borrow money, I'll sell assets. I had a full Bitcoin, I sold it all, so that's like, what, 100, almost what would be $100,000,
Mm-hmm.
$93,000 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to sell that, but that's almost like my life savings. And I traded that to put back into the company, and I'm going to keep trying with the company. And so you do. I mean, there's and then the other times like overcoming the technology, like the technological part of business where it's like you have to have a CRM, you have to have a system for managing invoices and revenue, and how what system are you going to use? There's Jobber, there's other free ones, and we use Service Autopilot. There's Copilot. There's different CRMs that you can use, and you have to overcome those challenges of a lot of guys don't even do that. A lot of guys don't have a website. And it's like you have to have that. If you want to get up to those high levels, you have to get over the fear of like operating a website or paying somebody to do that or learning more marketing, like paid ads and stuff. Like you have to overcome those things. And a lot of it is technological.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I just think that, the stress of things, you have to be just willing to endure stress and willing to overcome it. And I'm not like this with everything in life, but when it comes to this business, I basically will do just absolutely anything. Like I'll work 24 hours straight. I'll invest all my money. I'll read. I'll research. I'll work. Like I'll just do anything. And I think that's kind of the mentality that it takes to overcome whatever's stressing you out. Everyone is like an individual level of stress. And I think that's just, it's for everyone's personal development to overcome those challenges and push through to the next level.
Wow. Now, I want to thank you for being vulnerable, like you said about how you don't know if you're going to make payroll. You're kind of upside down. I've seen a few video clips of guys that's kind of not. I'm not going to say in the same position as you, but I don't remember these guys' names, but the video always stuck in my mind. And I remember one guy saying he was sitting in his living room. He don't know how he was going to make payroll. And I think he ended up landing a contract, gotten a big deposit, and then it kind of cleared him. And I remember another guy said he had
Yep.
put everything he had into this one Hail Mary play, and it didn't work. And I remember him saying, I told my wife if she want to leave me, I wouldn't fault her. And when you just told me, the predicament you're in, to be able to, hey, like you said, you just left the gym, you're on this podcast with me. Some guys will be at the house pulling their hair out their head. But like you say,
Oh yeah.
staying calm in the middle of the storm, that's a game changer. I really believe that right there is what it take guys to get to that next level.
Yeah, I do too. The mindset shift, because I compare myself to my younger self, and I would be so afraid if I could see what's going on right now. I would be so fearful. I wouldn't even want to do it. I wouldn't even go down that road if I
Mm,
saw where I'm at now.
right.
But right now, where I'm at, I'm so grateful that I'm here because, in fact, I'm just like happy every day. I'm grateful. I'm like I get to work on this really hard problem, like figuring out how to take this company from 0% profit to 20% profit. First off, I believe that I can, and I think that's the first step is believing that you have the ability to do whatever it is you're setting out to do. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't do it, but I
Mm-hmm.
but I genuinely believe that I can. And I talk with guys that have done it. It's like I know I can do this. So it's just can I survive long enough to get there, And so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I'm bridging it right now. But I know I'll do it, and I believe it so strongly. And I think that yeah, it's mindset. It's the mindset of just making a promise to yourself, like I'll never quit this. This is like the one thing I've never quit. I got to quit sports and quit all kinds of things in life, jobs, and this is like the thing that's like no matter how hard, like I've had the worst experiences in life with this business, and no matter how hard it is and how badly I want to quit, I it's almost like I'm in love with it, and I can't. I have to prove to myself that I can do this because I know I can, and I gotta keep trying until I finally do.
Right, right. And I heard you said also that you've paid for coaching calls. And now let me ask you this: do you think that really makes a difference when you're paying for coaching calls?
I think that so I've paid for a lot of different coaching calls, and a lot of it was just wasted money, to be honest.
Mm.
This one coach that I work with now, the least expensive one. has helped me out the most. Now I know my client acquisition cost. I know it like to a T. I
Mm.
know my efficiency rate. I know my attrition rate. Like I know all these really important KPIs that I didn't know. Like I know my break even per man hour. And when you understand those numbers really, really well, you have way more confidence into making decisions in what you're going to do. Because it's like before I was winging it. I basically winged it all the way to like 800, maybe even a million, like a
Mm.
million two. We winged it all the way up there. Now I'm not winging it. We lost like $400,000 in sales because we quit landscaping and we are only doing the simple services. But now I only sold 20% of all the work. I only worked 5 hours a week in the business, So it's like I've managed to change it to where it's scalable. I wouldn't have been able to do that without this coach. So now that I know that, it's like
Mm.
now I'm like, that's why I have the confidence I have because now I know these numbers and I know like we have systems in place for everything now. It's like now we just gotta pour, we just gotta get some money and make it one more season, and then we'll make the profit because now we have a scalable model, and now all we gotta do is scale it. We're just at a level where we're not making profit because we're down back under 800,000. Once we get back over 1.2 million, now there's gonna be profit there, and now we can actually soar, up to a couple million, and then we'll probably, there'll be new challenges once we get to that level. Are we going to have another location because now we're maxed out at this location, and there'll be challenges along the way. But at least let's get there, and then let's operate at let's just coast for a minute and stack profit and really prove that we can get there. Because then once we get there, then we can develop and work out a plan for how we're going to double that to five, and hopefully get to those multi-million-dollar levels in the future. There's very rare for a company to make it, $10 million in lawn care and landscaping. There's only
Right.
a handful of companies that do that here in our area, but we
Okay.
believe that, after 14 years and after all this investment and all this risk and all this, learning along the way, it's like I'm qualified. I'm
Right.
qualified to do it.
Right.
So
Right.
we're gonna keep going and we're gonna keep pushing and see what we can do because we only got one life,
Yeah.
and it's almost like a game. It's like how far can you go? I don't know. It's like worst case scenario, I have skills that can make a living. So who cares if I fail? I'll just end up doing something that's not that bad. So it's like worst case scenario. It's just not that bad anymore. I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to do this. I have my health and I have my family, and it's just kind of like the game of life, really.
Do you think every business owner should seek out coaching calls from somebody that already mastered that particular business?
I do. If they have goals on growing something to a larger level, you, it's going to help immensely to talk with somebody who's done that exact same thing.
Okay.
Finding the right coach is kind of hard to do, but if there's somebody out there that has done exactly what you're trying to do, the odds are they're going to help you in some way get to that level. And maybe you try it out and you're not getting maybe it's not worth it, but there's somebody out there that's definitely worth it, and it's going to scale you. It's going to get you there fast. So I definitely think that investing in the coaching, that's part of the personal development. That's
Okay.
that development or you're going to spend 20 years trying to figure it out yourself. It's like it's definitely worth it. I would say so.
Yeah. Now I've seen also on your TikTok that where you said you took some of your profits and invested into real estate.
Yep.
Now, do you think that helped? I know the real estate is for your future, and I understand that. Do you think at that moment it was a good time to do it versus taking that money and investing it into your business?
Honestly, like hindsight, if I knew what I know now, I would invest it into the business. Because
Hmm.
now, like I said, I have the confidence and I know all these KPIs that are so important. Because it's like now if I put, now I know if I put 100 grand into the business, I know exactly that I'm gonna get a million out. So it's like the return is higher. It makes more sense to invest in the business now. And that's kind of why I'm like pull the money out of the Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, the Bitcoin's going to go up in time and it's going to make money, but the business can make more.
Hmm.
And now I have more confidence in it making more that I'm like, it's all right. I'll make the profit back. I'll buy back the Bitcoin. I'll get it back. And same with real estate. I'll get real estate in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, that's why I'm open to even selling real estate if I have to. Like closing the business is not an option to me. Like I'm gonna sell off my other assets before I close the business. And so yeah, I think that hindsight, yeah, I would do that. But granted, back then it was the smartest play because first off, I didn't know what I know now,
Mm-hmm.
so it was smarter to invest in those other assets, and those other assets made a ton of money. I mean, the real estate has doubled, the Bitcoin like 10x. So I mean, they they made big returns. So
Mm.
I was very lucky for the timing, getting into those assets pre-COVID and then watching those investments rise a lot. I got very lucky in that regard, and that money has saved the business from going under today. And
Mm.
now it's just a trade-off.
Right. Now, do you think in your business, uh, which do you think's best? Cash, paying cash for things, or using debt to kind of leverage yourself?
I think that you should only use debt when you have a really good grasp of understanding the returns. Like I said about your numbers. If you know your
Mm-hmm.
numbers, if you're winging it, I don't think it's smart. And especially from the very beginning, like we used cash for the first 2 years. We bought our truck, our trailer. I built my trailer, like physically built it myself, bought the equipment off Craigslist, paid cash for everything. Any marketing was paid with cash. Everything was paid with cash for a couple of years. Finally, after I had built up like, I don't know, 50 accounts, and then the mower broke and I didn't have the money really, then I was like, okay, I'll go borrow 5 grand and get a nice mower. And I did. It was used, and to be honest, to this day, I still have that mower. And now, after I know the numbers, now I have no problem borrowing the money,
Mm.
because now I understand that if I borrow 100 grand, I'm gonna, triple it at bare minimum. I'm gonna triple it. So now it's not, it's still, there's still risk involved. So it's like, and to each their own. There's people that definitely don't over leverage,
Mm-hmm.
don't go out and, I don't know if anyone's aware, but like Chance Singh Bosa
Mm-hmm.
Landscaping,
Mm-hmm.
he's in like Minnesota or something. He's got a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period of time where he had financed like 4 trucks, plows, skid loaders, excavators. I mean, like brand new equipment just everywhere. I'm like, holy hell. And then you see him like a year later selling it all back off because it's like, that's just, you don't want to be over leveraged. And personally, I don't even believe in personal debt. Like, don't have any personal debt at all. If you're going to have debt, only have constructive debt that brings you a return. Like having an excavator or a piece of equipment that can make you money. I mean, if you have a plow truck, that plow truck's going to make you money, and then it's going to pull a trailer, and it's going to make you money. Even if it's depreciating asset, it's still going to make you money because you need a truck in order to make the money. So it's like I understand that, but don't over leverage. Don't buy a brand new truck. It's so easy to buy a brand new truck and then just be completely screwed on those payments. So I think it's a good balance. Like you want to have a good balance, and you want to manage your debt. You want to keep it at a certain level. And in the beginning, you definitely want to try to just avoid it until you have more confidence and proof that you're actually going to succeed with if you do borrow it. Because that's ultimately why companies go belly up or they file bankruptcy because they're just in debt so much that they're not getting out. They're just not they're not getting out, and there's no way out. So then they file bankruptcy.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, what do you see? What do you see your business in the next 5 years, and what do you see it in the next 10 years?
Honestly, in the next 10 years, I probably don't honestly see it. I kind of don't think that I'll have it in 10 years.
Hmm.
Um, if I do have it, it'll probably be operating at for me to keep it, it would have to be very successful. It'd have to be, operating at a 20-25% profit margin, and it has to be like $10 million revenue. It'd have to be, worth it, like worth it to keep. And I'd say that's pretty much it. To be worth it to keep, I'd have to be generating that kind of profit on a large number. If I'm making 1 million a year off of it in profit and I'm drawing out 1 million a year, that's like it's hard to get rid of that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing else I'm going to get that's going to match this. So I'm just going to keep it. But if I'm not getting that, if I'm just getting like a couple 100,000 or even 100,000, it's like, well, that's not going to be worth it to keep. So I'm really trying to structure it to where 5 years I kind of see it as as somewhere around 5 years, it being sold off, either sold to like another company and then just taking a complete 100% exit and just walking away with, me and my partner. I financed him half the company, so I'd have 51%. So if I could, I always say this to him, if I could have $1 million right now, I would basically sell it right now if I could walk away with $1 million, because I would just invest $1 million into different assets and then, be able to be free and do whatever I want.
Wow.
But there's also the thing where it's like, we might invest into another company that's a all services, and I could see us, getting to 30 million or so, and as a whole, but we're offering all kinds of services, and basically they're just acquiring us really, and we're just kind of
Okay.
basically merging with them too, so if we got like 25% of the whole business and we merged together, and that bigger company did a large number, like kind of like what the 10-year plan would be, if we could be, pulling, multiple six figures out, close to $1 million a year off a draw, I would definitely do that. But if I'm not going to do that, I'm probably not going to have the business, and I'll probably exit at some point for hopefully around $1 million, and reinvest into probably like a multifamily real estate deal. I could see something like that.
Okay. Now that's very interesting. I for sure said thought you was gonna keep it. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely thought about it, but like I said, I mean, it's very hard, and I'm kind of trying to build it to be sellable, and if it is very sellable and at a, a 5x multiple EBITDA, I might just keep it at that rate. It's like, well, shit, this is banging out good profit. Why would I sell it,
hmm.
But yeah, I got to get there first,
Right,
so.
right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, what's one mistake you had to learn the hard way?
That's a good question. Trying to get out of the business. Um, I don't even like this last year was kind of a hard lesson. We took quite a bit of money out, so I got rid of all the projects, and getting rid of all the projects. I mean, it was hard to do that, because our revenue went from 1.2 all the way down to 800, and so when you do that and your overhead's not really changing, you all of a sudden are losing money. And it's like, well, I have to lose money in order to scale the company back up to make more money without my time. Because that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to scale and not need my time. I'm trying to remove myself as a bottleneck. And it's a hard lesson. And I think that might be like one of the hardest things. Also, getting out of the bad habits. It's easy to do the busy work that we know how to do so well, and instead of doing the hard work that we are not sure of, but that's what moves the needle. I think that's a really kind of a hard thing to kind of figure that part out.
Okay. Couple more questions, Mr. Kendall, and we're gonna get you out of here. Um, who
Sure.
who has been your biggest supporter thus far?
I'd say I really haven't had one, to be
Mm.
honest. Myself, I'd say myself is
Yeah.
my business partner is definitely on board, and he's my brother, and we've been doing this together for a long time, so he's always supportive. Obviously, he's invested, but
Okay.
it's hard. Wife, like, mad at the business, and she's like, this is so stressful, like, why do you even have this still, like, especially when you're taking your life savings and putting it back into the company, and she's like, what, we're just going to use up our whole life savings for this, it's like,
Yeah.
that's hard. And I don't know, I mean, there's really no one that really supports you, really. I mean, it's like you have to not depend on support from other people, really. You got to believe so much in yourself that you're going to achieve it. And people are supportive in the beginning, and then once you start winning, then they start kind of hating on you because now you're getting further ahead than they are, which is weird, but that's just the world we live in, I guess. But yeah, you just got to believe in it yourself, and it's nice to have support, but don't depend on it. Just be ready to achieve it all yourself, and no matter what, you're just gonna push.
Yeah, that's true. Now, any I heard you say earlier you read the E Myth book. Any other books you have read or any motivational speakers you have listened to?
Mike Andes is like super like beneficial online. He really gives a lot of great content. As far as motivation goes, motivation only lasts so much. It only kind of so much. It's like 5% of the work. It really comes down to discipline. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's motivating yourself to be disciplined. I think that's kind of where the focus needs to be. And a very controversial person online that has helped me. And again, I'm going to be vulnerable because I know I'm going to mention this person's name, and a lot of people hate him. But for some reason, it's really helped me with my discipline. And so I don't believe in this person's like morals or ethics, but I do have to give credit where credit's due, and he did help me, get rid of my vices, focus on my personal development and exercise. And that person's Wes Watson. He's helped me realize that, we're all so weak, and I don't know. He's just motivated me to say this is non-negotiable. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, and so he's really helped me with that, to be honest.
Wow. Well, now, final question. If you can give yourself or somebody that's trying to start the business that you start, if you can give that person one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say, be ready for probably the biggest challenges of your life. Have the attitude and the mindset that no matter how hard it gets, you have the positive attitude that you're going to overcome it and not give up. I think the positive mindset and the attitude is really the key in getting to any success anywhere in life. Because there's challenges are going to come, and it's really just down to your attitude on how you view it. If you view whatever challenges as just tests and stepping stones and blessings in disguise, like these hard things are going to come at you, and those are your lessons. Those are your chances to learn how to overcome them. And so without them, you'll never get anywhere. Like, they're necessary. It has to be hard. If things aren't hard, you don't overcome hard things. It's not worth achieving, and it's not. It doesn't give you the same feeling. Like, people get success in overcoming hard things, and so having that right mental attitude, I think that's really the key there.
Wow. Mr. Kendall, I really appreciate your time. And man, your story is really motivating.
Awesome, dude. I'm so pumped. I'm so grateful that you reached out. I'm happy to, speak on things and hopefully give some insight to somebody listening. So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Again, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good day, and yeah, kill it.
Thank you, man.
All right. Bye bye.
All right. Let's give that guy a round of applause. Like he said, be comfortable while drowning. And he's right. Nobody's really going to support you when you're trying to do something great, but everybody will congratulate you at the finish line because nobody actually see what it takes to make it up that mountaintop. Nobody actually sees that. They just see the finished product, the work is done. But nobody actually is in that position with you, not getting any sleep, not eating, constant grind. You're trying to grow. You're trying to make this thing work. You're trying to be a husband. You're trying to be a father. It takes a lot to get to that next level. Some people are born to be employees, and some people are born to be business owners, winners. In life, you're either gonna lose or you're gonna win. Ain't no in between. This is not little league where everybody gets a trophy. You don't get rewarded for winning. I mean, you don't get rewarded for losing. You get rewarded for winning. If you lose, just know you're gonna lose everything. But if you win, you get to that other side. You get to the great life. You get to the best life. But some guys make it to that other side. Some guys don't. And lawn care landscaping, everybody cannot be Mike Andes. But you do have the opportunity to be a Mike Andes. Because this is why I love the Bible. The Bible says time and chance happen to them all. So that tells you right there that life is fair. It may not be, life may not play in your favor all the time, but life is fair. Life is fair. Be a game changer. The world is already full of players. Catch y'all on the next one.